Hey everyone, welcome to the Red Men TV. It's the Uncensored Match Build Up show. Yes, Liverpool playing another game of footy, as it tends to be the case very often these days. I think we're in the midst of this, 7 games in 3 weeks. Amnesty Hall to build up for the big game against Brentford on Saturday night at the G-Tech, 8 PM kickoff as well, which is a bit of a mad one. I am joined by Luke and by John Reid. We're going to have a little talk in part one about the home side, Brentford, what we've seen from them so far, the challenges that they may cause Liverpool after the break. We'll have a little look at Liverpool's team. Obviously, some injury news come from the manager's press conference. Players in form, players out of form. We don't even know what formation we're going to play. So we'll talk on that later on. Guys, thanks so much for coming in this morning. Do appreciate it. A little bit of a later start than usual because Anna made a press conference later. I'm guessing that might have something to do with the 8 o'clock kickoff. They decided they could maybe give themselves a lay-in. Fair enough. I understand that one. I'll start with you, Luke. Brentford's an interesting one because in the summer, when they lose, obviously Thomas Frank is the main thing that they lose. Of course, he goes to Spurs, the mastermind of Brentford's recent success. They lose their best player in Brian Mbeumo. They lose Johan Visa, so there's what the best part of 40 Premier League goals out. I think most people expected them to struggle, and then we saw them on the first game of the season, and they looked terrible. And at that point, everyone was already probably writing Brentford off way too early. I think I was involved in this, by the way. I wasn't having Keith Andrews and that team at all, but overall, mate, they've kind of plodded along doing what Brentford kind of do. They've been, they've had some big wins, some big results. They're 13th in the league, which is about right, really. So fair play to them that they've got themselves, 10 points out of 8 games. They'll be relatively pleased with where they're at. Yeah,
and I think 10 points out of 8, when you look at the teams they've played as well, they've took some losses, but that's to Man City and Chelsea as well, isn't it? They've played some of the big sides already. So yeah, I think I'm also a culprit of probably writing them off a bit too early this season. When you see the two lads going in, Wemmer and Vissa, you're thinking like, where are them goals going to get replaced? And you're sort of looking like Jordan Anderson's coming in. We watched the wheels fall off of Jordan Anderson live, thinking, can he still do it? He looks like he's having a bit of a second resurgence over there at Brentford as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be interesting for us watching because it's a lot of former Liverpool players in that team. You got Henderson's in there, Kelleher's in there, Vandenberg's in there. I'm missing one as well, aren't I? I think there's another one. Carvalho. Not playing too much, is he, on the bench a lot? But I would say something if he comes on and puts one past us, wouldn't it? So yeah,
it's interesting, John, because we all talk about the goals. Then how do you replace the goals? They have a little bit. They found yet another striker. Brentford tend to find their forwards. Listen, they haven't scored tons of goals, but to be fair to them, they have done all right in terms of in front of goal. 11 goals in 8 Premier League games isn't to be sniffed at. Especially, like say, when they lose their 2 main attackers. It looks like Igor Thiago was the man who they found to put the ball in the back of the net. Joint third top scorer in the league on 5. Only Haaland and Semenyo have more in the Premier League this year. They have yet again replaced another centre forward, and he's another guy who Liverpool are going to have to be wary of this weekend.
Yeah, he's a handful, isn't he? And he's,
he's very quick, isn't he, for a big fella? He looks like he shifts a bit.
I was going to say, that's the sort of thing that worries me about him, is just obviously he's looked a bit better in the sort of recent matches, but thinking about him going up against Kanate in terms of recovery pace and stuff and things like that. He is a handful, and it's not just that they've got him, they've got Sharder as well. They've got a few lads in the team who even if you necessarily sort of giving him too much attention, one of them could pop up and put something in. So, they're doing quite well to replace it. I think, they're one of those weird, they're almost, when I think of Brentford, they're almost, and it sounds weird to say this as if I'm damning them by comparison kind of thing, but they're almost like a Brighton light. You know what I mean? They operate obviously on a much smaller budget and stuff, but they're in a very similar vein of sort of define these players. A lot of the players now who are sort of stepping up are players they signed 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, you know what
I mean? You only sort of seen in maybe fits and starts. I think they're very good at sort of identifying young talent. Obviously, they took a lot of people off our books, if you like. Not least the goalie, who's we know is sort of Premier League proven. But they're a good little team. You know what I mean? And I don't say that to belittle them. I'm just mean in terms of size. But they're really, really handy. And as I say, I think you can almost in some senses exclude Haaland because he's like the outlier. He's the Messi, Ronaldo freak who skews the data. To be a goal behind Semenyo, who's on fire, and everyone's talking him up as the next big thing in the league, if you like, and the one who everyone's going to be looking at in the summer. And it's just sort of quietly going under the radar. No one's really, as far as I'm aware, talked Thiago up. It says a lot about that transition and how they've managed it.
Yeah, he's done well because obviously he comes in last year. He does his knee, hardly features, plays 8 games last year, and he's really taken over that role. Because I agree, I thought it was going to be Kevin Sharder would be the main man. It looks like they've moved him slightly to the left, and Thiago's up front. You mentioned them before, Luke. We'll start. they love Jordan Henderson down there. Like they're obsessed with him. They love him down there. I was reading a bit this morning on some of the fan comments about him and how he's really, really taken to it. In a similar light, really, to maybe what Granit Xhaka has done at Sunderland. Just that experienced head a little bit, but he can still play. And you are right, Liverpool, we thought Jordan Henderson, when he left us, it felt like he was just, the legs had gone, Liverpool were looking to move on. And he did, and Liverpool did well, eventually, without Jordan. But he looks like he has found a little bit of form there. He's enjoying that role down at Brentford, and he has been a very good player for them.
Yeah, I think, listen, him coming into the team, especially when we're talking about the young talent at Brentford, and then Henderson coming in, he's almost going to be like the one everyone's sort of looking up to and being like, right, he's going to help lead the team, he's going to have good advice, he's going to sort of take us into battle in these sort of tough games. But, as much as he's a Liverpool legend, Jordan Henderson will want to beat us. Everything. He will give us everything on Saturday night, because it's almost like he's got a little bit of a point to prove. We did write him off and say the wheels fell off him. Like, I was one, I put my hands up, he was gone. He just looked absolutely done. He looked finished. And he's come back around. He had a bit of a poor time in Saudi, and then it also didn't quite work for him at Ajax. And then he's come back to England, and like I said before, he's had sort of this resurgence. He's found a bit of form, and he does look like a leader within that side, and he looks a part of it. He looks like he's taken on the role really, really well. So it's one of them, isn't it? To be honest, at one point a few weeks ago, we probably could have done with him in our midfield the way we were playing. So let's see how he goes.
It helps John, really, and again, I know they're doing all right. They've done all right in the league, but like the one game a week looks like it suits Jordan. Maybe if it was 2 games a week, Champions League in the middle, like he was getting at Liverpool, or European competition, like he was getting at Ajax, that might be a bit much. But 1 game a week where he can rest, recover, go again. It looks like he's found a real good home down at Brentford. He's doing the job well. Some of the passes are amazing. He's continuing to do that. I think it was at United when he sets, again, it was Igor, wasn't it, with a lovely pass through. Like, he's provided them with, like, again, instability in the summer. They needed some stability, and he's certainly helped provide that for them.
Like, definitely, yeah. And I think, like, we've obviously got the inside track as Liverpool fans, where he spent sort of like the bulk of his career, but I think we can almost sort of characterise him, if you like, as like a box-to-box lad who loves running, you know what I mean? And like, and very much like when he played for Liverpool, in some senses, that was his role. He was box-to-box, he was the engine room, you're going back years, but like the whole Brexit midfield thing with him and Milner and stuff, and Ronaldo, like, but we know from watching him that he had so much more game intelligence and so much more to offer. So in some senses, beyond sort of the physicality, like, I'm not surprised. Like, those sort of threaded passes were so key to why he was vital when he played for Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like putting the ball forward quickly, unlocking defences, and letting people like your Salahs, your Manes of this world get in behind and sort of cause chaos. I think, looking at him in that sort of lens, if you like, I'm not surprised he's ended up at a club like Brentford. I mean, beyond sort of the financial side of it and it being maybe like the right fit for him, if you like. I think he's always probably been slightly more involved in the game, if you like, than what we necessarily think in terms of like managing the game and seeing what's going on. So going to a club like Brentford where, like, they use a lot of data, they use a lot, obviously, like a lot of analysis. Under Frank, they sort of played in moments, so they were playing transition. They've obviously got a set piece coach who's from within that circle, if you like, now as the manager. I think there's a lot of, for me, like, I feel like there's like a lot of synergy in that, in terms of like, his game intelligence. Maybe this is his like sort of way into coaching at some point. But he's a great head. I mean, you can't argue with the CV. Obviously, he's won the league with us. He's lifted the European Cup kind of thing. It's to be able to put that in. And if you mentioned it today in terms of Xhaka at Sunderland, I think if you look around the league at the teams who were smaller, maybe have smaller budgets, but who were doing well, that's a strategy that seems to be working for a lot of them. Like, it's no surprise to me that Sunderland are doing well, because they sort of went out and signed well. And brought that experience in. Same for Brentford. Having someone like that in the middle who, when maybe a game is getting away from you, can just sort of put his foot on the ball for 10 minutes and go, I know what we do here, we do this. And the young lad who we've brought in or whatever, you let him have 10 minutes to sort of calm down and settle back into a game. And like I say, it seems to be working out for them.
They've done really well, like saying, obviously, the Liverpool contingent's all involved. Vandenberg, Kelleher have been major parts. They've played quite a bit. At the back, it's worth mentioning, they do concede goals. You can't score against them. 12, I think, it is in 8 games, and teams have had chances against them. Kelleher had some really good games. He had a couple of moments. I think he could have done better. I think that first game against Forest, he was a bit shaky, but then he's continued to save us penalties. Yeah. He's been doing that for club and country again. And in front of him, he's got Sepp Vandenberg, he's got Collins. Like, again, no nonsense. You know what you're going to get from those kind of lads. But Liverpool have continued, even in this bad run Liverpool have been on, they've continued to create chances. They will have chances to try and get past Kelleher. If he's, I suppose, from his point of view, his shot stopping is meant to be his biggest attribute. Liverpool are going to have to do well to beat him, I suppose, because he's been in pretty good nick. Like I said, a couple of blemishes here, but he's been in pretty good nick.
Yeah, he was tremendous for us, and I think he's probably extremely gutted, wasn't he, when we made the signing on Ramadashvili, and if sort of that was the nudge that he weren't going to get the keys to the car in that sense, and we had to be the Liverpool #1 keeper. But you know, at times during his Liverpool's like sort of staying career, there was talk about him like, oh, how's Alisson going to get back in the team? Yeah, you know what I mean. Obviously, you can't. Alisson Becker's the best keeper in the world, but we were having them conversations, and that shows how much we rated him at times. My only qualm with Kelleher is, well, sometimes it just felt like there was a mistake in him sometimes, and like we said, that sort of pop back up over here, whether that's the height in him and stuff like that. He's not the tallest of keepers.
He gets trapped on his line, I think, a little bit too much. Sometimes he finds himself stuck on his line when he could get out and close.
Could get out and close the angle a bit quicker. So, like I said, if he's going to be coming under siege all game, and you know it's going to be one of them games where Liverpool are having 7, 8, 9 shots on target, you know, you'd think surely we're going to get one in here, we're going to get one past him. We're going to know his weaknesses as well. We've trained them that hard, you know, whether that's the lads putting one in the roof of the net, putting it down low on the floor, they're going to know what's the best way to do it. And I'm hoping he's not going to, you know, come back and bite us, to be honest, because if he puts in one of the performances he had, I don't know what ones specifically come to mind. Maybe the Carabao Cup performance, the first one, well, my first win of the Carabao Cup anyway. Them performances come to mind when he has an absolute storming game. If he puts one of them in, we're going to have real trouble.
Yeah, you mentioned actually as well, John, before the set piece thing. Obviously, Keith Andrews, set piece coach, into manager. They are very dangerous. They got, whether it's Damsgaard, very good delivery, and in Coyote they've got the long throw, and it's probably the best long throw in the league. Like everyone's back to the long throws, corners, free kicks. He's the best of them by a mile. I think it's unbelievable. It's an absolute cannon, and it's an absolute weapon. And it's another thing that Liverpool are going to have to be wary of. Arne Slot mentioned today in his press conference, not just from set pieces, but teams are just being direct against Liverpool. I think 160 odd long balls Liverpool have faced, and everyone's doing it, and throw-ins and corners and stuff. Keith Andrews is not going to tell his Brentford side, we're going to play around Liverpool all day. They're going to go long, they're going to play second balls, they're going to look for the throw-ins, they're going to look for the corners. Liverpool are going to have to defend manfully, because there's going to be 10 occasions when the ball is whipped in the box in the air, whether it be from that amazing throw from a corner, from a free kick, from a pass from deep. Liverpool are going to have to be, they are aware of it, but they're going to have to defend it better, because against United, for example, they won a lot of first headers, lost a lot of second balls. Against Newcastle, they didn't even win the first ball quite often. It hasn't been amazing for Liverpool when they've been attacked aerially.
No, I was going to say myself, like the second ball thing is something we've really struggled with, I think, for most of the season. But you're right, like we've sort of lost a bit of that physicality in terms of you know, being able to sort of claim things aerially. Like I feel like for years it's just sort of been something you take for granted, obviously with Van Dijk at the back and stuff. But it also sort of plays out in other areas. Like I think a big problem we've had in terms of like the lethargy in sort of the middle of the park, if you like, is that we haven't been closing things down. So these second balls have been hurting us, because then obviously teams are sort of getting breakaways and stuff. You know, it's an effective thing, and like, you know, you don't need to look further than the rest of the league. Arsenal, you know, there's loads of other teams who are doing it and having really like a lot of joy with it. It's going through a bit of a renaissance, but you know, it's a simple technique, and there's not like tons you can do to it. You know, like, it's not like you can sort of tactically correct it, you know, other than not kicking the ball out into touch and stuff. You just got to, you know, either be more sensible or play bigger lads, and we haven't got loads of them. Do you know what I mean? I do think it's as I say, it's a trend, and you would hope, given some of like the more recent performances, that like maybe it's something that we're sort of starting to correct. You know, obviously I think we dealt with it, with some of those things a lot more with some of the changes against Frankfurt. There was a lot more energy, you know, there was a lot more pressing, there was a lot more sort of getting to the ball. I think the way the manager is, and whether he sticks with this for this game, obviously we'll wait and see, but the sort of move to, you know, putting 4 in midfield to sort of like help shore that up, it definitely helps. It gives a bit more protection. I think the main thing for me is just in terms of he needs his lads to be switched on, as particularly as centre halves. You know, he needs Konate and Van Dijk. I would try as best I can to try and make everything else easy for those lads, therefore. So, like, you know, I know it's an entirely separate conversation about the whole right-back thing with Szoboszlai, but, like, don't be, like, making weird choices about, like, who plays where. Put everyone in the proper positions and just, you know, simplify Konate's game so he's not having the ball in space and getting in his own head kind of thing. Let him just be a centre-half and just clear things. I
agree this weekend. I think the first and foremost, Konate, Van Dijk and the goalkeeper, we don't really know the goalkeeper in this situation yet, are all going to have to just be on it. The ball's going to be in the air a lot. They're going to have to be commanded in the box. If they're not, then yeah, Brentford, we know, can cause Liverpool issues. But they can play as well. Yeah. You know, the likes of Damsgaard, Schade, Thiago, Carvalho, I know, in and out the team a little bit. Ouattara, who's coming from Bournemouth. They're all good footballers. They're not just some grok Stoke team who are just going to lump it forward. They can play a little bit as well. So it'll be fascinating to see how Liverpool get on. And we're going to go to a quick break now, ladies and gents, after which we'll have a little look at the Liverpool team. Who's in, who's out, what formation are we going to play? We'll talk about all that after this quick break. See you in a couple of minutes. Hey everyone, at the end of October we are going to be giving away this signed Liverpool shirt, and it is not just signed by one LFC legend, it is signed by 5 of them. You've got women's superstar sensation Natasha Dowie, you've got Sammy Lee, you've got Gary McAllister, you've got Bruce Grobbelaar, and you've got goal scoring machine John Aldridge's signature on this shirt. If you want to win it, simply head to redmenplus.com, become a legend tier subscriber, get all of our amazing content in both video and podcast forms, and loads of extra perks and bonuses as well, including this shirt. It was signed at our end of season party, and by the way, Jags from the Ragamuffins, he signed it too, and if you want, or if you don't, whatever, some of the Red Men TV crew can sign it for you as well. It is a truly unique prize. redmenplus.com, become a legend by the end of October and you'll be in the prize draw. Good luck. Welcome back to the show. Yes, let's talk about the Reds then. Before we get into anything in terms of what we would do and whatever, let's do some housekeeping from Arne Slot's press conference. Alisson Becker out, going to be out for a little bit longer according to the manager. Jeremy Frimpong going to be out, it looks like a fair amount of time as well, with his hamstring injury. And then around Alexander Isak and Ryan Gravenberch, the manager said, let's wait and see. He doesn't know yet. Doubt, but not completely ruled out. So that's where we're at. Now, bear in mind, we are less than 30 odd hours away time record, maybe a little bit less from the game. Doubt isn't great. Let's put it that way. They'll have a training session today. They'll see how they react tomorrow. I'm guessing they travel today and then do something tomorrow. So we'll see how we go. So that's where we're at in terms of fitness related. So first question, I was going to say Liverpool played a 4-4-2 in midweek effectively, John. They changed formation. They got both their forwards on the pitch. The manager could stick with that, but if Alexander Isak isn't fit enough to play, if he's doing that, he's doing something mad. He's just playing off from maybe, or maybe Mohamed Salah as a 2. My guess is he's probably going to go back to a more 4-3-3 style formation. Whether that's right or wrong, I think the Isak injury kind of forces his hand a little bit. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he can sort of have a bit of an halfway out, but I think sort of lining up as a 4-3-3. I think maybe if at any point we need to defend, we might drop back into a 4-4-2 shape and leave Salah and probably Ekitike sort of further forward, if you like. But also, you've also got the option, because of Ekitike's pace, presuming he starts, that he's in behind kind of thing.
He's going to start.
So, you know what I mean? So it's I think it'll be a bit of a hybrid. I think he likes the idea of having that extra man back at the minute, just as a bit of a safety blanket. And we were sort of talking before we started about works and stuff and how he sort of went out left, if you like. I think there'll be a bit of that. I think it will be 4-3-3, but I just think at times it'll drop back into a 4-4-2 shape.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's go through the team selections. Obviously, Mohamed will be on goal. Mentioned before, Frimpong's out. So unless he goes back to Szoboszlai right back, which is an option, by the way, because of the physicality of Brentford, it might be something he chooses. But my guess is, Luke, it's going to be Connor at right back, Van Dijk, Konate. So then he's got a conversation again at left back between Andy Robertson and Milos Kerkez. Robertson did pretty well in midweek, it's fair to say. I think some of the criticism of Kerkez has been a bit OTT at times. Yeah. Again, on form, maybe he sticks with Robbo. Can Robbo go again after playing Wednesday, after not playing a while? That'll bear in mind as well. What would you do at left back?
Yeah, I think Milos Kerkez, I've been finding him extremely frustrating with just his going to ground and stuff like that. And I think Man United, he didn't cover himself in glory. However, with Andy Robbo playing midweek, can he go back to back? I'm thinking most definitely not. And I'm also thinking about that sort of pace and transition that Brentford have. Are we leaving Robbo out there to dry, sort of on that, maybe on the right hand side, or likely, Brentford's right hand side, or likely Atara? Is he going to leave Robbo for dust essentially in the transition? You think he probably does have the pace on the turn to do so. So I'd probably go with Milos Kerkez in there and hopefully be a bit organised from the dead balls, because like we've seen, he caused him a lot of trouble at Newcastle, but I think he sort of regained that form a little bit, and he showed a little bit more discipline from sort of like the dead balls on the throw-ins and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd probably select Milos. It's
interesting, John, because if you said to me Liverpool are going to be dealing with balls into the box, who do you want defending the back post? I would still choose Andy Robertson. I know he's had a few issues recently, but it's been more, actually, that's been more runners into the box, ghosting past them. I think actually just defending headers away, corners, clearances, he tends to be good at that. But then the flip side is, whether it is Ouattara or who else, the pace has been an issue a little bit for Robbo. So I'm kind of in between when it comes to defensively. I think if Robbo could go again, and they think the physical stats show he could, maybe it towards there, just because, like you say, Saturday night, G-Tech, aerial bombardment, maybe you just need that more experienced head. That's what's going in Andy Robbo's favour if he gets the nod.
It is, and he's got that about him that I think like he offers so much more game intelligence. I think the thing I really like about him, and the thing that I've sort of not enjoyed so far this season, like as we work our way through this, is that we've lost a lot of the verticality that we had. And I don't just mean in terms of like pace up and down the wing, I mean in terms of just passing forward. It's going side to side a lot more. He's not about that, and you've seen that for the ball for the goal for Ekitike midweek. I think there's a lot he can do. I think my fear with Kerkez is that, like, as good as he's been, if you like, in sort of his career and all the sort of evidence we've got of him at Bournemouth, he's still a very young player. And I fear with him that, like, if you just keep playing him, there's sort of a school of thought that you play him till he gets the role. But my fear is that, like, you almost end up in some senses hanging him out to dry a bit. Like, if we start him at Brentford and he has a bad 45 against an Ouattara, say, and you take him off and bring Robertson on, yeah, or shouldn't he maybe we look better because we've got an old head on the pitch, but what does that do for the lad's confidence? Like, do you keep just hanging him out, or do you go, well, no, actually, we're going to put, someone ahead who's more experienced, and we'll sort of blood him in gently. That seemed to work, magic for us under the old manager. Obviously, Slot's his own man. They've all got their own plans when they've sat down in the summer, what they're going to do for the team to transition it and stuff. But for me, I just think at the minute Robertson offers more. I don't quite see the logic in just sort of bombing him out. I know he had an injury and stuff last season and this, that and the other, and you're sort of keen to, blood the new talent, like, but I just think for now, we need a bit of stability, both within the playing squad for the new signings, but also obviously in terms of, like, we're off the back of 4 defeats up until Frankfurt. Like, we need to just help us build a bit of a platform, and just, if you can plug one hole for now and focus on something else, like, to me, I would just start Robertson.
There you go then, conclusive. One vote for Kerkez, one vote for Robbo. I'll stay on the fence, I've got no idea. I think I'd probably err towards Kerkez, but I'm fine either way. I can see the logic in both. Midfield's interesting. At the start of the season, when they didn't have Ryan Gravenberch, Luke, the manager, was like, yeah, maybe we were a bit too offensive. That's why we were getting counter-attacked. Not listen, Liverpool haven't actually been watertight when Gravenberch has been playing. But he's got a decision to make in midfield in terms of if there is going to be a deeper lie. So first of all, is there going to be 2 or 3? Is his first question, and then you build out from there. I think if you're picking on form, it would be Jones, Szoboszlai, and then Wirtz will play. It's just whether he plays off that nominal right-hand side or he goes back into a 3-man midfield. Now, Jones, Szoboszlai, Wirtz is very attacking. It's very industrious. McAllister didn't play in midweek, come off the bench, so he's very much in contention for this one as well. How do you see the midfield shaping up? Because I think the only one I think I can nail down is going to play is Sobbo.
Yeah.
And then the rest is going to be kind of up to the manager's discretion, really, how he wants to set up.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult, and it's basically because the midfield you name there and you go Jones, Sobbo, Wirtz, that's just screaming like attacking, isn't it? We're going to go, we're going to try and take the game by the scruff of the neck, and that's when you're going to leave yourself open. And also, when you think about, like, defensive responsibilities and dealing with the long balls, dealing with the throw-ins, dealing with the set pieces, you probably do want Ryan Gravenberch on the field, to be honest, I think, in that regard, even though, like we said, he hasn't been watertight defensively. It's just more, if he's a doubt today, is he going to be... Listen, if Gravenberch was 100%, he's going to play. But I'm just... the fact that he's a doubt today, is he going to be ready to start a game and do an hour to 70, 80, 90? I don't know, is the honest answer. I'm just presuming, let's presume that he's not. This is the conversation. If Gravenberch's playing, then he plays, Sobbo plays, and then it's up to the manager what the third one is. I'm assuming at this point that he's probably not ready to go. That's where the manager might have a little bit of a headache. Endo, I just don't see him starting Endo, even though, if you were talking about being defensive, maybe that's your option. I think it would be, again, John, unfair on Jones and Szoboszlai, even missed out. I think of all the midfielders, they probably, Gravenberch, Sard, who knows, now injured, probably been the best 2 in form. They both had really good games in midweek. It would be him. Maybe sticking 4-4-2. He could easily play Wirtz. He could play Gakpo on the left, and he could do Ekitike up front with Salah or with Chiesa if he wants, whatever his option is. I'm guessing, given the manager's history, that it would be towards Mo Salah.
Is that 4-4-2 against the 4-2-3-1 of Brentford? So is that that's a potential risk? I don't know.
Yeah, you run the risk, I guess, sort of maybe being slightly overwhelmed by the extra man, but like at the same time, like you've got to sort of, I think, look at the attributes of the players, and like for all the praise maybe earlier I've sort of lumped on Henderson, you know, in terms of like his ability in that. You know, Luke's right, like, you know, they're older legs. There's a lot of run in there that he's done. You know, putting Jones and Szoboszlai either side of him and being like, right, we're not going to bother with what you guys are doing. You've got to think about the fact that we're running in behind you constantly is a way around that. I do think you've got to sort of reward at the minute sort of what's working. I think like I say, for me, like the problem we've really struggled with is that in trying to put all these new lads in, we've sort of lost a lot of what made us good, which was like the directness. You know, having Jones, having Szoboszlai there, you get all that back in the centre of the park, which really, really helps. So for me, I would say, given the Gravenberch potential absence, they're non-negotiables. They both start. It's more what he puts ahead of it in terms of, does he go, as you say, sort of all-out attacking, or does he play it a bit more conservative? I think
he could leave Vert out and play Alexis if he wants a bit more. So Alexis isn't exactly an amazing form either, though. But if he's worried about being too overexposed, then that is an option as well, though, to John, to be fair.
Well, my only thing with that is I think he did that sort of last week, and he sort of like nominally had McAllister playing as a 10. And I'm not knocking that in the sense of like, I agree, like he's very much a viable option. I just think if you're going to play McAllister as a 10, why aren't you starting Vert?
You might as well just play
just play Vert.
I'm just thinking no. I'm just thinking that isn't it. I was just thinking it's not a 10. It's Jones deeper and 2-8s in front, or Sobbo and Jones with. Because if it's Sobbo and Jones as a pivot with someone in front, then you're absolutely right. Just pick Florian Vert. But if you're going to go to a more nominal 6 and 2-8s, then maybe that's where you say to Alexis, you start and Vert's on the bench. It'll be interesting. So Ekatike is going to play.
Yeah.
You know, and rightly so, by the way. What a player. Unbelievable how good he is. Yeah. He's an absolute joke, that fella. Just keep your top on, everything will be fine. He'll cause them issues. He's fantastic. Gakpo's going to play. I think it's. I know he did a shift in midweek, but he's the left winger at this moment in time. Although, you know, Federico Chiesa is a player of the month for September, might have won an argument, but it looks like it's Gakpo on that left-hand side. The manager hasn't really erred too far away from that one. And by the way, he's continued to score an assist. He hasn't always played particularly well. I also think height-wise might be an option for having Gakpo on your team, albeit stop running away from your back post. Stop trying to score counter-attacks when we're defending, Cozy. Just head the ball away and then we can go from there. It's whether he brings Salah back in is the big question here, Luke. Whether it's in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-2, whatever, leaves Mo Salah out. He didn't look thrilled with it. You know, there's been some social media activity that's been talked about a little bit with Mohamed Salah as well. Again, if he hasn't been in great form, I think he would be as harsh as critic in terms of how his season started. If you leave Mo Salah out on Wednesday, he's rested. If you leave Mo Salah out on Wednesday and then don't play him again on Saturday, you've dropped Mo Salah. Like that's the difference. If you leave someone out twice in a run, you're not resting them. You're not saving Mo Salah for Crystal Palace in the League Cup. So I think he'll start him. I'm not completely sure maybe that he should, but I think maybe we're probably going to see Salah back in the team.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see Mo Salah back in the team, and I think he was rested on Wednesday night, as we know. I don't think he was dropped. I think he's rested, as you said, Steve. He didn't play the Galatasaray game either, did he? So I think that's sort of, we probably aren't going to see him too many in them away Champions League games, and that's probably because we are sort of saving him for the league, I imagine. But
do you think? Do you think Arnold on that, Luke, has decided I'm not asked if they finish top or 8th in this group as long as they get through? Like we can afford to be a little bit more conservative with these players because he has mentioned, you know, a bit running out of steam in March time last year. Maybe that was always in the plan. But the fact that it came on the back of Salah having some pretty disappointing performances, and then Liverpool play better without him. There is a valid argument. Say, listen, Sosmo, greatest player we've had for a long, long time, but the team are better without. You know, I think it's an argument. I just don't know which one that this manager is ready to make just yet.
No, I don't think he's ready to make it just yet. And I think, like you just touched on, Steve, I think I made that point a couple of weeks ago, sort of like, what's the difference between finishing first and 8th? Absolutely none, to be honest, because everybody in that top 8 is absolutely boss. So it doesn't really matter in that respect where you finish. And picking up the points away from home, it doesn't look like you need too many to break that sort of top 8. You're probably looking at a win and a draw and win your home games, and you're going to get yourself in there. So, like I said, I don't think that's why we're seeing so much rotation in the middle of the week. What I think is interesting is if Mo Salah is going to play, is he going to play in that 4-4-2 up front? The conversation we were having earlier, he sort of plays that central role for Egypt all the time. Yes, they're not playing the same calibre of Premier League opponents, But is that something where we could put him in there and he does a job and
doesn't have to defend as much.
Yeah, he doesn't have to get back as much, and sort of it's sort of you go on that big man little man partnership there in the top of the pitch with Ekitike and Salah there. It's sort of two different options and two different outlets. Whether that means Salah comes short a bit more and Ekitike doesn't have to link the play as much, even though that's been something he's been absolutely brilliant at. But then there's that giving more freedom of getting in behind and using his pace. So I think that's something you could look at. But I also think the Wednesday result's really interesting with the 4-4-2, because after the Man United game, he was having a pop at Amarin about Sesko, wasn't he? And sort of Sesko's played every wrong game. Man United's played this system the whole time. And they've come to Anfield and now they've changed it and they've got a result. And basically admitting that we didn't think they were going to get changed it and we've been caught out a little bit. So it's really interesting that he's gone straight away and changed his system on the Wednesday. And as that core Frankfurt out bit, was that a bit of an anomaly there? Are we sort of...
There's no way that Frankfurt would expect us to play 4-4-2.
Oh, absolutely no way.
Keith Andrews will have had some conversations.
It touches back to Man City, where we played that 4-4-2 essentially for last season. And we turned up, no one expected it, and we got a massive result. Was that just a one-off, or are we going to go into Sunday and say, you know what, it worked, let's do it again, just because we're looking for form there? And I think, like I said, if we do go there, I think Mo Salah in that double pivot, that two up front would be excellent.
I think Isak's injury makes it a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, it does, definitely.
On that regard, I think if Isak was fully fit, then maybe it would potentially be a different conversation. So let's Mamadashvili.
Yeah.
I think we ended up getting outvoted. So Kerkez, Van Dijk, Konate, Bradley, although I think it's fair to say neither of us would be disappointed if it's Robbo, Sam, whatever. Jones, Sobbo, Ekitike, Gakpo, Salah, and did we settle on Vert as the last of this 11 then?
Yeah, I would go Vert.
I think we'll probably go Vert, yeah.
Okay, cool. And that can transition from a 4-3-3 into a 4-4-2 if you needed to as
quite
well.
Easily, yeah.
There's a lot of flexibility within that team as well. So yeah, that's what we would do. Let us know in the comment section what you do. If you're listening to us as a podcast, feel free to get in touch on social media. What would your Liverpool starting 11 be? We'll get some score predictions from the guys on that game towards the end of the show. Before we do, let's have a little look around the Premier League, as we tend to do on these shows, because yeah, it isn't just, of course, Liverpool in action this weekend. There's a lot of football to be played. It starts this evening, actually, at time recording, Leeds against West Ham in a big relegation battle there. There's a lot of I think there's a lot of people in last man standings who have got to like round 6, 7, 8, 9 and are banking on Leeds in that one. We'll see how that one goes. Chelsea host Sunderland. Sunderland looking to go, add to their brilliant home form. It's an away win at Chelsea, which we'll see how they go. I think Sunderland is a tough ask for anyone to play at this moment in time. Brighton always beat Man United. So we'll see if Ruben Amorim, he slayed the ghost of back-to-back wins. He got one, unfortunately. He slayed the beast of Liverpool, unfortunately for us. Brighton's the next test on that one. I wouldn't be shocked if the current Man United story, John, would be that they lose that game. Because just as things start to look like they may be turning a corner, the balloon gets popped. And Brighton have actually been in pretty good nick recently as well.
Yeah, you wouldn't be shocked. And I think, it's easy. How often have we seen that United variations of that United team under different managers sort of like pull one out the bag against Liverpool and then go back to just being what they are for the rest of the season, kind of thing.
All time.
It would not shock me, and I think that, as you say, like Brighton's whole sort of team, I think they've, short of obviously of James Milner, who always sort of skews the average, like I think that most of their team is under 26. They're like one of the lowest average ages in the league. So they're full of pace, full of energy. They've got a good young manager who's sort of had a bit of a mad, I think, sort of ride with that club over the last 18 months, but they all seem to be on the same page now from what I see. I just, at some point, that United team, for whatever the headlines are and the sort of stuff that goes around the media with it, it reverts to type. The system doesn't quite work that he wants to play. The lads who were there or whatever, don't want to put the work in terms of running and stuff. It might not be this week, but I think you're right. I think it probably will be Brighton. But if it's not this week, it'll be next week.
Arsenal host Crystal Palace. Now, to be fair, over the last year, when we all know we were all looking because Liverpool could actually win the league during this fixture, if things are going a bit differently, Arsenal's record is really good against Palace for the most part. But Palace had a very good team, Luke. At some point, Liverpool now, unfortunately, the position we found ourselves in, need people to do us a favour. If it was at Selhurst Park, you'd maybe fancy it more. The fact, but Palace shouldn't be an easy out. You talk about set piece goals. Arsenal are the best. Palace are next, I think, in terms of they're defensively okay. Although they had a bit of a wobble recently. It was the mad 3-3 game against Bournemouth, but Is there any hope for Palace to do something at the Emirates?
I don't think so, to be honest. I watched the second half of Palace last night as well, and I thought he looked really poor. He got beat, didn't he, last night in that Conference League? And
that doesn't help as well, by the way.
I know, it doesn't help, and it's sort of like, you think, they get beat at the Conference League, they'll rotate the team. No, they're playing most of them, to be honest. So it's one of them, that extra game midweek, Arsenal are going to have a couple of days rest on them. I think Arsenal just roll them, and then Arsenal are also in like inspired form. This form that's like, we sort of talked about them having at the start of the season when we looked at the squad lists, and we were saying, wow, this Arsenal team, it's absolutely stacked. They've got so many bodies, so many experienced players. They've got young talent. They've got everything. Then it weren't quite clicking, and now it looks like it's clicked. And like that performance since Atletico Madrid midweek was really, really good. Sort of the ones we were expecting to see at the start of the season. So I think they probably continue to build on that, and maybe we look at a busy Christmas for them, hopefully. Yeah, let's hope.
After this, I think they go to Burnley. And then forget the cup, they go to Burnley, then they go to Prague, and then they go to Sunderland in a week. Maybe there's something there for them, but yeah, we're all hoping at some point, because they do like the best team at the moment, Arsenal, fair enough. City go to Villa, exact same time, Sunday, 2:00. Again, Villa are having a rubbish season. They're so inconsistent at this moment in time. Another team, yesterday they got beat, and they're just having a real tough time. Villa Park away feels like a game where it should be difficult. But Haaland's a freak, and at this moment in time, the City juggernaut kind of looks like it's on its way again. They've won 4 of their last 5 Premier League games as well. John, it feels like City are starting to get into shape, and Villa aren't. It feels like from our own point of view, from a Liverpool point of view, if we want City to drop points somewhere, it doesn't feel like the most opportune time for this fixture. You'd rather this be an 8:00 on a Saturday somewhere around Christmas, where maybe Villa are a little bit up, because City feel like they're probably going to shade this one as well.
Yeah, they seem to have sort of hit on something, don't they? There was a sort of fear, I think, for them maybe a couple of weeks ago that it was basically Haaland, and then that was it. They didn't really offer anything else. But the last few weeks, they seem to have sort of somehow struck a balance. I know they're still missing sort of a few key lads who you would sort of associate in that squad with Guardiola and sort of like what they do, particularly Stones. But they're just I've got to be careful how I say this. Like, I think City are still in a weird place in that I still couldn't necessarily say to you like what the vision is. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like, whenever I watch them lately, I don't see the team that I've seen for 8, 9, 10 years kind of thing. But
Haaland's amazing.
Haaland's amazing. But there's still a threat. They still, for whatever the fault is in terms of like the game plan, if you like, there's still loads of lads in that squad who have won the league and have won multiple cups and trophies and know what they're doing. They're just in that weird stage at the minute where I think like most of the young blood that they've brought in haven't necessarily like bedded in and sort of like are fully up to speed. We'll be sat here in 18 months and like Marmoush will be like, joint second top scorer kind of thing. Haaland will still be bagging on, they will come again is what I'm saying. And like, and they're building towards that definitely. But I just think it's sort of been fits and starts. They'll probably be Villa. They'll probably win a few more, and then there'll be a bit of a spell where maybe they draw 2 and lose 1, and it's a bit like what's going on, and then all of a sudden they're fine again.
Well, I'm just quickly looking at this on SofaScore, not texting anyone. Is our win list in the last 3 years there, City? Yeah. Villa have won 2, and then they've drew the last.
That's what I'm saying. Usually,
so,
City don't do well at Villa, but it's just I think the timing's wrong. Villa didn't have a great again, similar to.
It's if Villa can separate that European form from midweek after, because they could build on a good win there. At
you can't. I mean, you can't. Can you get beat by Go Ahead Eagles and then beat City? But then you're like, they did beat Spurs. And I say Europe's mad, isn't it? I think it was Larnaca who beat.
Larnaca who beat Palace.
Who beat Crystal Palace. Like, again,
I
think sometimes you look ahead. Sometimes you be looking ahead. At what's coming up, and maybe that takes eye off the ball. But yes, I think you can separate Europe from Premier League form is a bit more easy these days. And then Bournemouth Forest will be interesting. Again, another team who were close to Liverpool Sunday. Again, some good games at 2:00 on Sunday, absolutely. And then it'll round up with Everton hosting Tottenham at Hilditch. And they said Goodison, and I nearly slipped into old habit. So that is the Premier League weekend done. Right then, guys. John, Liverpool going to Brentford. How do you think it's going to go? Give me a score prediction.
I think we concede, unfortunately, but I think we still win 1-3 or 3-1. However we're going to put it, but 1-3.
You can say whatever you want, boy.
I don't think we're going to win, but I'm going, so I hope we're going to win. So,
well, we don't draw.
I know. We don't draw.
Yeah.
No, I think I'll go for 2-1. I think it's going to be really close. I do think we concede. I just hope we don't concede first, which is what we tend to be doing all the time. So
yeah, I agree. I can't see the clean sheet thing coming. I'm going to go 2-1 as well. I think Ekitike is in such good form that I think he will fire Liverpool to the win. We've got some commentary. JD said 3-1. Ryan said 2-0 with Salah and Ekitike. And Red's Eye 192 says, yeah, Liverpool must get the win. And then says, I reckon we'll win 2-1. So there's some score predictions from you guys in the chat. That's our score predictions as well. Let us know you're not watching this live or you're listening to us as a podcast. Get involved in the comment section or on social media. Let us know your predictions for Liverpool versus Brentford. In terms of the game, we will have a watch-along. It's a late kick-off. I mean, Saturday evening, it's a late one. You're going to be home at God knows what at the time. Sunday morning. Yeah. Hopefully you're coming home from the G-Tech with a win. We'll be in the studio. We'll be live from 6:40 at 20 to 7 reacting to the team news, and then it'll be the entirety of the watch along. So yeah, do come and check us out here on the YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks to you guys for coming in. Catch you on next time.